Alain Hunkins has over 20 years in leadership training, facilitation, adult learning, and development design. He's also deeply involved in organizational development and culture change. And that's one of the things that really turned me on to him. I haven't had too many guests that really talk about culture, so we'll talk about that. Alain's career accomplishments include facilitating leadership and behavior change programs to more than 2,000 groups, organizations of all sizes. He's experienced as a experience as a project designer and master trainer for a 13,000 person organizational cultural change multi-year process. We're talking huge time frame there. He's custom designed interactive leadership programs delivered to groups of more than 1,000 people. His passion is to kindle the fire of brilliance in individuals, teams, and organizations to create a better world. Alain, we just met. I hope everything's going okay for you.
Dave, everything's going great. I am really enjoying the conversation so far. I'm looking forward to the part where we record this bit.
I
So it's
know
great.
it's yeah, but it's easy to enjoy all the glorious stuff about you. Not judging, anyhow. Um, let's just jump in here on this culture thing. In your mind, what are some of the more noticeable impacts that you've observed in organizational culture during COVID-19?
Great question, Dave. So for me, first of all, let's define culture. Culture is basically the set of norms of how we behave. What's it like to work here? And clearly, what's it like to work here takes on a whole new definition when here is now remote working from home with a pet or a toddler or someone on your lap and you're fighting over office space. It's crazy, right? And so the biggest things I'm seeing in terms of changes to organizational culture and the things that need to happen is if you look in the dictionary and look at the definition of trauma, it defines it as a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. Can we agree that COVID
Okay,
qualifies?
check,
Yeah.
check. Yeah.
So check, right? And so the biggest thing is basically we're seeing more and more organizations and cultures who are getting this, by the way, who understand, is actually checking in with people, going, how are you today?
Yeah.
And knowing that it's okay not to be okay.
Mhm.
And that people are letting their guard down. It's funny, before this, um, Deloitte did a study that said 61% of employees feel like they have to wear a mask at work. And there's something about the fact that we're all going through this traumatic experience together that I
Yeah.
think in some ways, some people are letting the guard down. And what really smart leaders and organizations are doing around culture is they're using this as an opportunity to lean in and become even more exceptionally human, because realizing that people are pretty resilient. So many people said, we can never have our people working from home. Well,
Yeah.
guess what? They're working from home. And you know what? They're doing pretty well at it for the most part. So adults are surprisingly resilient and resourceful. And so I think hopefully we'll learn some lessons out of this that we can move forward. So the first big thing is be exceptionally human when you move forward.
You posted very recently a Fast Company article, very well constructed, to the point article, again that had to do with culture, but this work from home impact on that is really brought to light the issue of burnout, remote work burnout. In that article, you share some really practical ideas and tips on self care. You mind just sharing maybe one or two of them?
Sure. Happy to. Yeah. So here's the thing. I mean, the fact is, people are working. It's so easy when you're all at home. There's no more work-life balance. It's just like a work-life stew, mush.
I know.
So many and so many people are working 2 or 3 hours more a day just because it's so easy just to keep going and the boundaries get blurred. So a couple of quick, easy tips to do. Number one, build in buffers to your day. The fact is, on paper, you can go from your 8 o'clock meeting to your 9 o'clock to your 10 o'clock, etc. Works on paper, does not work in reality.
Hmm.
Start scheduling meetings for either 25 minutes or 50 minutes just to give yourself that, oh, shake it off, breathe
Yep.
it, like let's
Yep.
get our head in the game, because you can't go hour after hour. Otherwise, you're going to end up in what's called the pandemic brain fog. Fancy word is allostatic load, but it's the stress from just being there. So number one is create buffers.
Right.
Number two, the other thing is build some rituals in. You had rituals, whether it was the morning commute, the ride up the elevator, the stopping at the coffee shop, whatever it was, you had all these rituals that have been taken away by the pandemic. Find ways to build things back in,
Hmm.
because rituals we have in life, they serve as transition points to get from one threshold to the other,
Hmm.
right? So we think about it. People get married, you go from being unmarried to
Yep.
married. The wedding is a ritual. So
Yep.
build Now, I'm not saying have a wedding every day, unless that's your thing. But that being said, find ways, whether it's, before I start this meeting,
Yeah.
to take a few deep breaths, or just to center yourself, or think about, what is the point of this, or look at my planner, something that's going to help ground you and focus you. So,
Mhm.
a couple big things there: buffers and rituals. They will go a long way to helping you avoid remote work burnout.
I noticed that when I first started working from home, I'm going to say the middle of, well, the beginning of April, I made it a point to every morning. The first thing I did every morning was I took a 2.5 mile walk with the dog. You know what I mean? And then at night,
Yeah.
I'll take another 2.5 mile walk with the dog. So you get these like bookended walks with the dog, and you're just my mind. I just try to mental floss for my brain. You know?
So important. I was working with a client, and she was saying, her usual commute, she had a 75-minute commute,
Hmm.
and it was gone.
Yep.
Now it was a 75-second commute.
Yep.
So what she's been, and her commute time was her time to process everything.
Yep.
So what she's found herself doing, she's taking really long showers.
Yeah.
Because she needs, so it's like,
It
you've got to
helps.
replace something. It helps. You need something to build in, because what the buffers and the rituals and the structure does is it creates a platform
Right.
for us to be able to function at our best.
My last question for you, Alain, is what lessons have we learned that we must not forget?
Well, that's a big or small question. I think I want to keep it in the frame of this pandemic and the crises that the world is going through. So, one of the hardest things for humans to do is become more self aware. Most of us are pretty blind to our own blindness. And what I would say is, when it comes to this pandemic, and not to mention what's been going on with all of Black Lives Matter
Sure.
movement and racial tension, is like the economy. We have gotten three massive wake up calls this year
Yep.
to stop and press pause on the day to day, go, 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 do, and question what's going. So my hope is that moving forward, the lessons we should not forget is, when we get to the new normal, whatever that looks like,
What is
is
that?
to, yeah, whatever that might look like. The lesson is, remember what's really important. And if you haven't figured out what it is, to take the time and discover it, because it's so much easier to achieve success when your ladder is pointed up against the right wall. And that means being really clear on what your values are. So that's what we hope should all remember taking out of these crises.
Hey, thanks for sharing. Alain, it was so nice to meet you.
You too, Dave. It's really been a pleasure. Thank you.